It's important to verify that your bivio records agree with your brokerage records each month. We call this process reconciliation. If you're using AccountSync, this should be a very quick process. Sometimes people think if they're using AccountSync that there's absolutely nothing they need to do as a club treasurer. That's almost true, but not quite. AccountSync is very good, but it is still a computer talking to another computer and needs human oversight. Your club accounting is very date sensitive. It's important to keep it accurate and up to date by reconciling it every month. That way you won't have very many transactions to go through if you do find a problem. You cannot know that any accounting transactions that you enter today will be correct unless you know that all of your historical information is also correct. If you are not using AccountSync, this process becomes even more important. No matter how perfect we are, we all still make occasional typos or forget to make important entries. Just because your bivio site shows a lot of numbers doesn't mean they're useful for anything. Without verification, any reports you prepare, including your taxes, will just be garbage in, garbage out. The good news is that reconciliation should actually be a fairly quick process consisting of only a few steps. First, you'll need the reports that you're going to use to make your comparison. You'll need a copy of your latest brokerage statement and a club valuation report that's dated the same as the statement date. All you need to do is compare the cash balance on your valuation report to that shown on your brokerage statement. And then compare the number of shares for each stock owned with the numbers shown on the brokerage statement. Edit, delete, or add any transactions needed to correct your records, and that's it. We'll go through each of these steps in a little more detail. Your brokerage statement will look something like this. You may receive a paper copy each month, but more and more brokers are going to electronic versions. It still looks the same, you just have to access it online and print it out using your own paper and ink if you'd like a hard copy. You'll have to get to know the statements your broker sends out, but somewhere on them you'll be able to find the cash balance in your account. For this account, here's the cash balance right here. You'll also find somewhere the number of shares of stock that you actually hold at your brokerage, and it'll be something like this. And finally, on your statement, you'll see a list of all the actual transactions that have happened in your account that month. You'll compare your brokerage statement to a valuation report that's dated the same date as your statement. The first comparison you'll make is to verify the cash balances agree between bivio and your brokerage statement. In this case there's a problem somewhere. These cash balances don't agree. We're going to need to find out why and correct whatever problem might exist. We'll go through how to do that in a moment. You should also compare the number of shares of each stock you own. Your valuation statement should show the same number that your brokerage statement does. If they are different, you may have missed or incorrectly entered a stock transaction at some point and you need to find it and fix it. The investment transaction lists I showed you earlier are a good place to start to figure out where the problem is. To search for the reason the cash balance is off, we'll use the brokerage transaction list from bivio. What's nice about online brokerages today is that you can also get a transaction list from your brokerage website. Once you have the two lists, all you need to do is go down Transactions, checking to make sure that all transactions on the brokerage list are also entered in bivio and that the amounts agree with the amounts in your bivio records. For example, here's the purchase of 100 shares of Neogen which you can see is the same in bivio as it is on the brokerage statement. Here's the receipt of an $11.25 dividend, which you can also see is the same in bivio. Here's a money market entry. Since money market accounts do not change in price each day like stocks, they're normally tracked as cash. Purchase and redemptions of money market funds are not tracked as separate transactions in your bivio records. As you go through this line-by-line comparison, eventually you'll find the problem. In this case, the check receipt on 12/16 for $25.03 on the brokerage list disagrees with the amount in the bivio records of $26.03. This is the source of the cash balance being off. To correct this, click on the edit link that you'll find on the incorrect transaction. This was an incorrect member payment, so the payment entry form opens up. Find the incorrect entry, correct the payment amount, and select OK to update the transaction. After the corrections, you can recheck and you'll see that the cash balance in bivio now agrees with the brokerage balance. You need to reconcile even if you're using AccountSync. Its entries can only be as good as the data file of information provided to us by your broker. There are sometimes mistakes in those files, and AccountSync cannot interpret the information correctly. This happens very rarely, but it does happen. Because we call it AccountSync, sometimes people get confused with how it works. It's not a true synchronization. It just reads in new entries. It does not look to see if they've already been made. If you find that AccountSync has duplicated an entry you've already made manually, it's fine to delete the extra one. If you have missing entries, you'll need to make them manually. AccountSync only pulls in transactions newer than the most recent one in your account. If you're missing an older one, it will not go back and fill it in. If you don't know how to correct a problem, email us in support@bivio.com and we'll help you learn how to do it. But in general, you can make any manual entries you need to using buttons like these you will find at the top of the Accounting Accounts, Accounting Investments, and Accounting Members pages. There is one thing that might not agree between your brokerage statement and your valuation report that is not something you need to fix. That is the market value of your stocks. Occasionally, due to different data sources that may have determined prices at different times, or to slightly different rounding methods on your broker report versus bivio's, you may see a penny or so difference in the total market value of one of your holdings. This is not something that necessarily needs to be fixed. What is important is that the number of shares of each stock agree exactly, and that you're sure that you don't have unlisted investments whose prices are not getting automatically updated. But getting an exact match between bivio and a brokerage statement for the market value of each of your holdings is not part of the reconciliation process. So in summary, it's extremely important that you keep your records accurate and up to date each month. But don't worry, clubs really don't have a lot of transactions, and if you're using AccountSync, it will be rare that you will find any differences. Just reconcile your accounts quickly each month by comparing your cash balances and your number of shares of each stock with your brokerage statements. And make sure you correct anything you find that doesn't agree.